So there's a screw that holds in this little air feeder tube. There we go. Alright, should be able to just finagle this out just like that. And we'll probably put that screw back in, at least for now. Oh, we don't lose it, and we remember where it goes. Alright, we're going to have to get a piston stop in this. Get ready to take off the flywheel here. Boy, this baby has not been off. I don't know in how long. I mean, the way it's corroded, gosh. Probably, if it's not the original, it's close to it. Holy buckets. Yeah, I don't know if you can see that. So it's fairly wet. Boy, there's a lot of carbon buildup in there. Either there's a lot of crap fines that got into it, or running too hot, too much oil, probably all of the above. I'm not gonna, right now, not thinking we're gonna have a piston in all that great a shape. Let's get this up towards top dead center. Yeah, it's not the worst I've seen, but there's definitely some not looking the best on the top of the cylinder. Down at the exhaust side, it looks like it's not in the worst shape. Yeah, I can even still see the markings on it. So, it's not terrible. You know, might not be a bad idea for me just to pull this off to clean it up, assuming that there's no other issues with the saw. In fact, I think what we're going to do here, I'm going to shut you off. And then I'll get my little endoscope in there, and I'm just kind of curious for my own sake here, sooner than later, whether or not we've got any scoring on the cylinder, and I might be able to tell that with that endoscope. All right, so I'm actually, you know, not really seeing something too bad. Things look fair to Midland. No major scoring. There's a couple really slight marks, maybe just some glazing. You know, I'm thinking I really need to crack this open and do some cleanup work, and hopefully be able to just reuse the everything. But once I get the muffler off here, we're going to have a better idea whether or not we actually have scoring on the piston, to at least know what we're in for. But I think it's pretty sure bet, based upon what I'm seeing, that I at least need to clean the top of the piston and maybe put a honing stone through the cylinder to rehatch it and whatnot. So that's where we're at so far. Let's see here. That's right. We have got we're gonna need probably a 10mm socket here. thinking this muffler hasn't been off in an awful long time either. Fortunately, I didn't break any bolts here. That's a good sign. This has been off at least once though, because what I see here is a nylock nut was used. These are actually, this I believe is the OEM locking nut. So there was a nylock nut and a washer placed on this muffler at some point. Ooh, is that ever on there? May need to use some help with a ratchet on that. Alright, I'm going to get a little lazy. I don't like using these very often, but sometimes just to get them started. Don't be overly alarmed by all that oil residue you see. That was from shipment. The saw wasn't in a consistent position in the box and was coming out the vent here and then got all over the bottom end of the saw. So no, I'm not too concerned about that. But you got to take this whole bracket off to get the muffler out. Now a lot of times these threaded holes here will go into the actual oil tank. So if you have much residue in your oil tank, that could result in a fair amount of oil residue getting on your project. All right, that's kind of at a little bit of a moment of truth here. Very anxious to see what kind of shape the cylinder is in. And again, if I feel it worthwhile, I'll use my endoscope to show you guys some video up close if we can't get it to show real well in the regular camera. All right, I can see a couple other issues here. There is no exhaust gasket. Notice how this has been scuffed up, machined. The guy was basically, oh, there is a gasket. No, there isn't. It's gone. So there's supposed to be a gasket, I believe, on this side. And then this is all scuffed up. So there's no way this is providing a real good seal. You can see there, it's not bypassing a whole lot, probably a little bit over here. So we're probably gonna be forced to replace this little part along with the, gonna have to get a exhaust gasket. So that's unfortunate. Another thing I'm seeing here, and this could have happened in transit, and I don't think you can see this necessarily, but nah, you won't be able to see it, but there's a lot of oil residue in this muffler. Either when in transit it was coming up in here, bypassing the seam. The one thing that has me a little concerned, now maybe you can see it a little bit. Yeah, so there's a lot of oil. It's probably two-stroke oil up in that muffler. I'm guessing the guy ran this incredibly rich, really high mixture of oil. A lot of people do that. I'm not going to get into a discussion whether that's good or bad, but it can cause you a lot of issues. Fortunately, things don't appear to be really clogged up in there. Still kind of curious how much of that could be from... That's definitely not bar and chain oil, though. So there's definitely lubrication, and there's a lot of lubrication getting past the cylinder. Yeah, it's really, maybe I can zoom you in there to see that a little bit. See how wet that is? It's really wet right here. Yeah, so that's not a great sign in terms of how the saw was treated and run. I'm just going to go ahead and... Okay, I got the rings. The rings are not, they don't appear to be seized at all. Saw does appear to have some compression. I'm seeing maybe just ever so slight, one little very slight score in there. I'm going to see if I can feel it with my finger. I cannot. So I think that's a good sign that we do not have a wrecked top end here. There's a little bit, see if I can get you in here. Of course, one thing you can see for sure is how dirty the saw is. There's just no excuse for that. Again, that saw is going to run hot given those conditions. Doesn't matter how much oil. You can see I got another issue here. Looks like part of one of those fins broke off in the past, right down in there. So I don't think that's worthy of replacing the whole cylinder. I'm not seeing any obvious blow-by or anything like that at the base of the gasket. Sorry here, I'm trying to, it's kind of difficult doing this. But the cylinder's pretty clean. And I'm just not sure if you can see. Yeah, so right in there, there's a little bit of varnishing near the bottom ring, but that's easily cleaned up. Generally speaking, I would say it looks to be in good shape. So ultimately you get to a point like this and you have to decide whether, you know, is it worth the top end, the cylinder here, I think is going to be, I'd have to look, 150. I don't think it's any more than that for this saw, but is it worth investing in that cylinder and piston assembly, or just going with it a little, giving it a little bit of love? Now I could get into the saw and I could determine that potentially there's a little bit of wear on the bottom of the skirt, that type of thing, in which case then maybe I'd go ahead and replace the piston, and then of course take a closer look at the cylinder, see if there's any, what the kind of condition the plating is in, if there's any scoring, and whether or not I can actually resurface that. So there's still some decisions to be made here. There's still potentially more investment in parts. I'm only into the saw for $450, so I think it's going to work no matter what here. But I'm optimistic that yeah, this probably was still a running saw. I think it was run with way too much oil, and who knows whether I haven't looked at the carb yet, so I don't know if it was actually also run overly rich on top of that. But anyway, clearly we got some work to do here. I'm probably going to see if I can get a cover plate on this or cover this end, although, well, I already know I'm going to break into this thing. So as a result, I guess I'm not so concerned about anything getting in there. So anyway, I don't have anything right offhand to show you. I'm gonna clean this up a little bit off camera, and then when I'm next online, we will get the flywheel off.